So you've been pretty active with all this stuff we're talking about, and I guess we're all feeling each other, and we wonder about each other, and so we have thoughts, and I don't know. Are we on to something?
Yeah, I think a lot of what you've been writing about is clear. It gets clear, but like the ninth chapter that you sent, I had to reread it a couple of times to really understand it. But then now it's like starting to take shape for me.
Yeah, like maybe I can't relate to that in one sense because I read it a couple of times. I read it tens of times. I read it so many times.
So, but for you, it's something that you know and you try to put into words, right?
Yeah, I try to put it into words. I don't know what you mean by no or what. I mean, like, okay, let me be
No,
clear about something. Like, we're not denying anybody's experience. We're not trying to tell them how to live or how how they are or or anything. In fact, I'll just share this. I met a guy that has had a lot of spiritual experiences and done a lot of traditional work,
mm,
maybe in Buddhism or with different things, Vipassana and stuff. A lot of it, and of course, he's had all kinds of corroborating experiences, and I never would, I never came to him and said, "You maybe you should doubt those experiences, whatever they are." But still, we talk about what you say makes you feel good and all that, and like all the links that we're talking about work with him too, and he agrees, yeah, like, and then
yeah,
I don't know, I had this kind of like a conversation. I was actually out with him last night, and I was saying like, when you are unfolding, also spiritually, I don't know, is there a gravity that seems to just take you to the next step naturally? Or is there a gravity that holds you away and that you need more and more practice to break through that gravity and more teachers and masters, right? Anyhow, it didn't seem like there was a gravity just means like a propensity to unfold into a certain direction, which is like somebody's idea of awakening. I don't know if he didn't say there was one. So then to me, like what we are doing has its own gravity to it. It just means like it's kind of like each waking moment is kind of like an opening for the next waking moment, and it just happens by itself. It's a more effortless path. And then,
yeah,
anyhow, I thought that was interesting.
yeah. That is interesting, and I think that for me personally, I think once you have one of those experiences, then you're looking for what that was all about at some level,
Exactly.
because it's so different for each individual. And a lot of times there's a sense of, I can't verbalize this clearly enough to make sense of it because most people aren't aware of what went on. And the person having the experience also is not aware of what really went on. But something fundamentally shifts, I think. There's a shift that happens from that experience where you can't deny it, but um, you can't stay in it, and then that memory of whatever experience it was almost acts as as a blocker. It almost blocks the progress because you aren't living in the moment. You're looking for that moment again, or that feeling or realization that you had to come true again, or to be like that again. And it never repeats. There's always something fresh that happens. And I suppose with all the practices and things like that, you slowly let go of that attachment to whatever it was that was keeping you attached to the story of what happened in the past. I don't know.
One way I looked at it was, okay, if I can have a experience that seems to be really way bigger than what I've been used to, then somehow my capacity as an experiencer, maybe it's not even there, but anyhow, somehow the perception of that is that I am also big enough to contain that bigger experience. Because if I was just very small, I could never have a big experience, right? So I must be somehow big enough to have a bigger experience, which means like be aware of more things and be not necessarily centered in this small space, and be out and be all around, right? And so then that's kind of reasonable that people say, well, oh my gosh, so then my identity is actually bigger than I thought it was. And then I suppose it's not okay. Then they talk to people and read material and try to figure out, well, what do people call that, and is that a common experience, or does it happen to other people? And then I suppose it wouldn't be uncommon for people to say, well, I dedicate my life to that. Maybe it'll take me 50 years, but that's all I want. But I don't know, like if you dedicate your life to it, no matter what, I mean, like, let's say trash this part of life.
Trash
Don't
this part?
trash means like don't meet any parts of your life that you need to meet, and
Yeah.
just let all kinds of urgencies build up, and then skirt around them, and then just say, okay, I'm just going to go sit in vipassana until I find a better way, or
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, and I think that's unrealistic in some way. And I think there's a snapping out of that at some point. It's like, well, I've done all the searching, I've kind of reached a limit, and now it's like um, I need to be more present or more alive here and now. Um, and it's not even a need, it's more like just being there, being there to experience life and kind of enjoy it in a way, not just just be in life and not have a good
I don't know if
time.
you're going to enjoy it. I guess you have to enjoy it now, right? When you realize
That's
that,
right.
and then you could say, well, you need to be more present. Well, what you mean is the opportunity of this lifetime is to be here.
Yeah,
And so that's, you could say, the opportunity. So then meeting life is something that, I don't know, it just came to me to write about. Because, well, maybe I saw people that I thought weren't meeting different parts of their life. And then I realized that that's such a general statement. I mean, just say meet your life in openness. So
yeah,
then it's not kind of meaningless. So then I thought, okay, well, let's just say there's all kinds of segments to life, and everyone has a kind of a different uh, reaction or a different built-in self-talk, which
yeah,
makes a different feeling. So then it makes more sense to divide things up and kind of look at them. And I made that list, and then I asked people to make their own list, or what am I missing there? And how
Yeah.
do you like that idea?
I, then I went through the list and it was like always overwhelming. Like, oh my gosh, what a long list this is. And and then I realized that a lot of it, like money and time and professions and uh, a lot of this had to be met at some level, and there was a tendency not. I mean, for me anyway, that it was almost like a shying away from it because it was that there was too much there. There's so many things to be met, but no, it really makes sense. It's almost like you need to do it when it arises, like when the situation arises, use that opportunity to face it. I don't know if I can make up, um, like, okay, now how do I feel about money this minute? I mean, because it keeps changing. Um, there's a list of things that, like a sense of insecurity. Is there ever enough of it, or is there fear that there won't be enough of it? All that comes up around the issue of money. Like, am I facing that? By just acknowledging it, that in a way you're facing it, right? By knowing
Well,
that
that's the
that's
first
what it
step for
is.
sure. Maybe it's facing, and maybe that's just the first step. Hold on a sec. I'm going to close this window because it seems to be traffic noise.
Okay.
Well, these are just a big list. They're not all there at once.
No.
And most everything is just one at a time.
Yeah.
And so then, if you have that credo, anyhow, like you say that, okay, everything's one at a time. Maybe it's coming too fast. Then even overwhelm is just one more. It's a good way to look at it. That's all. It's a good story. And then you say, okay,
That
I'll handle overwhelm. Oh, that's just a thought. Okay, next. And then meeting those things, I mean, they only come up when they call. They call you. Like a letter comes in the mail to pay a bill, and you say, okay, let's see, when's that due? I'll put it in the file for later. And do it when I do it, and then kind of set it down. Don't always worry about it, and then whatever. So then financially, you can say, okay, well, you make up a rule, like a story. Well, everything is a self-talk, right? You make up a story and say, okay, there never seems to be enough. And then you think you're in this like waterfall or this chute that you're sliding down, and that no matter what you do, it's not going to cover it anyhow. You'll still have the same rotten feeling. And then you say, well, that's kind of a bad area. Let me get away from there. But really, maybe there does seem to be enough. You know, I was thinking there was never enough, but I had it so suppressed, right, that it was really underwater. I think, oh yeah, but I'm tough. I can, I'm smart. I'm agile. All these things, so then I can make it be enough or something. Or, like I'm thrifty. And so then, I don't know, when I finally decided, oh, like this Thailand's a good place, everything was enough all of a sudden. And it's now I kind of like lifted off my shoulders.
yeah.
And I thought, it doesn't really. So then saying, oh, it's never enough, that's not right anymore. Maybe I would have said that before, you know. And then
But that
I could say my insurance doesn't cover here or something like that, I don't know what. I could have some kind of a complaint about it. I could say the hospitals were good here, so I don't need insurance. I don't know why, but they're just kind of one at a time, and you have a feel for each one. You could feel if there's pressure, and then I don't even know if you really have to. You know, the way we tell it about how a story equals pressure or equals contraction, it sounds like you have to really invent so many stories. You know, like you have to spin so many stories. But I'm not even so sure that that's the case. Maybe you just have to release. You have an intention to stay released, and then you know a story is meaning, and you're taking meaning lightly. And then, I don't know, I'm feeling like I don't even have to really know on the other story or a more friendly to myself story. I almost can just go, oh yeah, I was tight there. I don't need that. And then somehow it all jives, it all makes sense to me because I know that that's not my intention. My intention is well, the experiment is all about meeting life in an open way and not having an anxiety call to action. And so then I try to be playful at everything, and whether I have a story on it. And then if I contemplate it later, then the story, I start making it up stronger and stronger. I say, yeah, that's one way yeah, that's a good way to look at it too. Oh, how about that, And then, yeah, I build all that. I think we all build a kind of a worldview, little by little, but if we don't really have to do it in that moment. We can just release.
Yeah. I'm just thinking, it is a worldview. Hmm. So meeting it is, what you mean by meeting something is not uh, not denying it or not running away from it. Is that what you mean by meeting?
Okay, what happens? Like in almost, how do we actually? What are we as this living unit? Feeling and then thinking and then doing. What are actually? What are we? Something comes on the scene, right? We call that a perception. How does it really come on? It must be somehow ticked. I say ticked like something in our body goes, poop. There's something to pay attention to here. It's got to be a feeling, doesn't it? Otherwise, it doesn't come on the radar. You get a feeling that, and so then, first of all, you're meeting that feeling. I mean, the feeling brings an idea. Oh, this is a letter in the mail. I wonder what they want here. See, here I got a letter. Oh, look, they ticked this thing. It was a feeling like, oh no, not these guys. And then I gotta meet the feeling of it, and I gotta meet what I think about it, right? And then I gotta do an action step if I think that's what that feeling is all about. Or maybe I just file it and say, oh yeah, that's all taken care of. So those are the kind of the meetings that I'm talking about. When do you meet though? But only when you get that feeling. So you're meeting your feeling about, okay, then if you say like, oh, ha ha, those guys are idiots. I ain't doing none of that. So then in a way, that's a deflection, right? That's not meeting it. In a way, you're not considering it really. Well, there's so many ways to deflect from life. I guess a justification is a deflection every time. So in a way, meeting is also sitting without your meanings or taking meanings lightly and seeing if this is really something that you should handle or that it requires action or it doesn't require action. And your computer might get a virus, right? And you got a feeling about it, like, damn, why do guys do that? Or girls. We always think it's guys, right?
I know.
So then, I bought that new software, but that damn stuff doesn't work. And then you can start ruminating, like, I wonder if it's the virus software companies that make the viruses. That really ups their sales. Anyhow, you know what I mean. So then those are meetings, you meet, there's a feeling, and then there's a thought about it, and then that thought, okay, like if that thought is puts you in a victim seat, then you've got a further contraction to meet. And if that thought about it says, hey, I can resolve this, I'm empowered here, then then your contraction level goes down about it. You're more relaxed about it.
Um,
And then
okay.
that's the kind of the way that you open up to every day have a little opening
So
and diffuse
instead
a
of
reaction.
collapsing into the negativity of, oh gosh, I'm going to have to get someone to come and fix this now, and going doing that in your, that's a grumble, right? It's a grumble about the consequence of the virus being in the computer. It's just the practical part of it that is tiresome. I mean, we know that it'll get done eventually, but it's just, again, it's about time. It's about how much time it's going to take to get it done. And
Definitely, that's
I,
it. It's like, okay, like I had planned to use this computer and now it's getting blocked up. It's getting too slow. This virus is screwing it up. Yeah, I'm supposed to be doing something else tomorrow, and not to be searching a guy to clean my hard disk. And sure, and then you could say, well, I'm upset about that. I don't know. I'm not so
like a,
sure. I'm not so sure. Like if I would say about myself, like if I get upset anymore. Oh, I can act out a few things and dramatize just a little bit, but really inside, I don't really feel upset because, like, what is the use? Whatever you're doing when you're upset, you're in a worse efficiency or effectiveness than you were when you weren't upset. So then it just goes downhill. You're just taking yourself downhill, and anyhow, you're the one that's going to have the ulcer or make an acid on your stomach or something. Uh, your upsetness doesn't really affect the other party. They're not getting sick on it. You are. So then I don't know if any kind of upsetness is really justified ever, or is it? Like you say, okay, I'm going to die. They just told me that you got 2 months left to live. Even there, an upsetness, radical, right? So then an upsetness means, okay, out of those 60 days, you're going to give a certain percentage of your time to be upset. And you only got 60 days now. It's worse, right? Don't be upset.
I guess the feeling arises, but I think it's the meaning, like you say, and the story that goes behind the feeling that makes it continue. So maybe you feel a twinge about, oh, this thing's here, but then not to dwell on that and just um, see that as that's what happened, and how am I going to deal with it now? I guess that's empowerment, is to say, well, this happened now, and now I'm going to deal with it.
Yeah, I mean, like you can doubt it and you can say, okay, look, I'm going to go to another doctor and get a second opinion or a third opinion,
About
right?
time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so then you don't have to accept everything that just strikes you, but you research it.
Yeah. I was talking more about the virus, but about death.
Or illness.
Um, But death, I suppose, death could be there every minute, right? If you really die to the past every minute, then it's continuous death. But continuous death of memories of what happened, that's a form of death. But death of the self, of the body, of experience of everything, that that too keeps happening every minute, really. Right? That's nothing. Well,
Well, they
I
say
guess.
that and aging and all that, but anyhow, I mean, there's also renewing it every minute too, or otherwise we'd be dead pretty quickly. So then there's always a renewing going on. Maybe it doesn't catch up with the drying out. You know, the skin gets drier and stuff, and whatever is happening, probably not. If I'm doing stuff that is accumulating toxins and stuff, well then maybe I'm putting too much it in too fast, and whatever the capacity of my body to take it back out again, so it gets accumulated and then blocks up things. And okay, even the same thing about the death of thoughts. You know, death of memories is like a kind of a death, but you know that's a renewing too because we got always new ones. So then that's kind of a rolling or a renewing. But anyhow, it's more of an issue of focus, isn't it? Like you focus on your memories or you focus on what's happening now. And then that focus is more like a definition, like it's your interest. Because you say, oh, like now is boring. Why would I focus on now? You know, I got to go somewhere. Maybe I got to go on a vacation. Then it'll be interesting, right? And so then that kind of is in a definition that has you defocus and remember the good times, remember the good old times, and recreate them, and then use them as a benchmark and say, well, I could change my life now toward what this one thing I could even do it better, and then I mean all these things are kind of like an influence to say, well, to dismiss what's happening now. But I
Yeah.
mean, yeah,
And
you know, you'd have to have a definition that now is somehow important in order to allow yourself to focus on now more often. And so then the self-talk around it would be what would kind of drive your interest and your focus. So then you could just have a definition that now is where it's happening.
yeah,
Maybe it would have to be a little richer than that.
now, um, and I guess about death and physical death, um, I think it's the suffering around dying that most people are anxious about, right? Not death itself, because death is, if it's instant, there's nothing to worry about. It's the suffering that worries people, I think.
I totally agree. I wrote that somewhere. Maybe I haven't released it yet, but I totally I wrote, I forget where, but I wrote that you know, I don't think anyone's afraid of death. They're just afraid of the pain around it, or the, you know, because most death comes from sickness, right, and degeneration. I mean, you got to die for a reason. It's either an accident or just a sudden heart attack, or well, in most cases, there's a degeneration and maybe a long period of you know, incapacitation, and then it probably hurts too, and
Yeah.
then you have to live in a hospital bed or somewhere weird, and then they take all your money for that too, and then it all just seems very distasteful,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, and that feeling of loss of independence, it's like you're totally dependent on other
Yeah,
people to take care of
it gets bad
everything.
when you can't even go to the bathroom, right? And then you're
I
really not
know.
independent.
So I think that's the part, if anything, that worries me about death. But what about worry? I mean, how do you bring worry into this whole thing about? because then that's going into the future, right? You're not really being present now. Do you re-story worry?
You know, it's just like what we said. Like, in order to, it's a focus, right?
The focus.
So, in order to focus on this moment, you have to restore this moment. Somehow, you have to say it's important. And even saying I'm going to be worried about death, well, that's not happening now. And then
No.
it's two things. It's one to restore this moment to say that, well, let's just see what's happening. And the second thing is, um,
What could happen?
well, that's a focus, you know, it's a focus because you can run endless stories on what could happen. There's
Yeah.
a gajillion kind of scenarios. And then you pick one that's strange. Yeah. I don't know, you pick one or two, and then those are your favorite ones, you know.
It's like for me, I guess it would be about the kids and
Yeah,
what they're
yeah.
doing and what's going to happen. I hope they're safe, all that kind of thing. And the reason for that is I I don't want to suffer the pain of whatever is going wrong with them. So it's again it comes back to a selfish reason, right, for why I'm worried about somebody else. But, you know, but worry is something that's always in the future, and so I suppose again it's not being present, or you're not in the gap when you and you can't do anything with that if you're not here right now and doing what needs to be done, right?
It's kind of a double definition, you know. One is something about how you're just not that sure that about the present being all, you know, really this is it, and that really being sure that everything you do that's kind of like focusing away from the present is really robbing you of life. When you're really sure of that, that's one. Then the other thing is that when you're worrying or thinking about the future, you're probably thinking it helps,
But it doesn't.
but that you'll be prepared, right? But you're only going to be prepared for these disasters that you're worrying about, right? And then I don't know, you'll be looking for them, and I don't know, watch out for that disaster, and then you'll be comparing the present as it moves. You know, you go see your daughter again, and then you think, I wonder if she's in that trouble like I was worrying about. No, no, she's okay. So then you're checking, right? I mean, that
That's
it's
right.
all pretty damaging, right?
It is.
So then when you
It,
get clear on that, I don't know, man. And then that's just, okay, we use all these terms like gap and all this stuff. So, but that's a spark of an image that you went for. And that's in the chapter 9, right?
yeah.
And so then, if you find yourself already there, like somehow automatically, you believe that that's a good spark of the image that you need. It needs your help in order to make sure it doesn't happen. And then that spark of an image is not a spark of an image; it's a train of thought with you. Whatever, you know. And I'm not picking on any one or another. And then when you realize, oh no, okay, what is a spark of an image? It just means like it's a potential thought train or train of thought. But why is it potential? Because you had the power to set it down, right? In other words, the only way a spark of an image is a spark of an image is that you set it down. And then you just kind of, I don't know if you have to breathe into it or really kind of like think that it's got power to grab you, but it doesn't. Or otherwise, you could just set them all down, and then sooner or later, you say, "Oh, that was fun too," and then you start to think about something, and maybe future, maybe not, and then it should be more friendly to yourself, and then right, if it's something like that looks like a new creativity or a new engagement, you might say yes to it and say, "Well, I'll just spend a few hours on this one." Meet some new person or something, just receive them, not trying to convince them of anything, and all the things that, we've said so many things, and so many things already from this life and from everything else you've experienced. And, okay, worry, we're talking against worry, but even just daydreaming about how the future will be great is kind of a waste, right? Even the positive daydream.
Vipassana is a daydream, you think?
Say what?
Did you say something about Vipassana?
No, positive daydreaming.
Oh, okay.
Like, okay, we call worry is negative daydreaming.
Okay.
But even positive daydreaming, in a way, is impoverishing life.
Yeah, that's true. Definitely true. I there was another thing about this projection, like um, everything we see is really a projection of our beliefs and meanings or our limited. It's almost like tunnel vision, right?
I suppose. I mean, like we had said one time, we made up this thing called stack, and we said we look through our stack to understand, to gain understanding. Not to gain understanding, just to understand. That's all we really understand is our beliefs. It always
So
jives with the beliefs, right? What we see.
yeah. So one of the things in that Shiva process was about how everything is should be subjective and not about what's going on with the other. It's like more about what's happening to me rather than what's going on with the outside world. So if you're so focused on what's going on within you, um, then how do you get to the reality of what's objectively true? Because you're seeing so much from your own subjectivity and your feelings of hurt and things like that. That's good to as far as acknowledgement goes, but then to clarify that and really see other than that, that's where your thing about restoring makes sense. And they say that too in a different way because you bring other people's perception of your reality, and then your reality kind of broadens out to see it different from your staff, I suppose.
Okay, let's say that there's a protective mother syndrome. I'm not blaming you of that, but
No.
anyhow, maybe you could relate to it because you maybe have friends or something. Right? And so let's say they worry about their daughter and say, "Well, I wish she was married and had a family, and then she'd be all secure, right? And then they would buy a home and things would be really good, right? And then somehow you keep yearning for that, And so, in a way, I guess you could call it a worry, right? You're saying like she's not secure now because she's off on her own and getting all these careers and educations and stuff. But if she was just married and had a family and a couple of babies, and I would go visit them, and it would just be like I don't know what. Oh, like many people think is a good way to be, right? And then you'd say, well, okay, like you're focusing on you want someone to do something that the way you want them to do it, and in the time schedule you want them to do it. And so then should you be focusing on that? And that gives you a funny feeling, like I'm worried about her. And then so then you focus on your feeling, which is subjective instead of the objective. If she's going to get married or not, or how's her boyfriend nowadays, or whatever, you know. And so then you say, well, okay, like I feel I'm not at ease because my daughter's life is not the way I think. I know it would be really better if she was just. And so then someone will say, well, what do you really want? You know, well, I want to be at ease. Well, how would that look? You know, well, I would have a good feeling. Every time I thought about my daughter, I wouldn't. This other thought wouldn't come up, right? And then they might say, well, can you give that to yourself right now? Give that sense of ease and try it on for size. Feel it. How does that feel if you would be at ease? And you just go, huh. Well, I'm thinking about my daughter now, and that uptightness is not present. You know, I just feeling, phew, her life is okay. Her life's okay, and besides, she's empowered enough to run it the way she wants to run it. And then someone might suggest, can you just gift yourself that feeling? And then, you know, from that place where you feel at ease about your family, in this case your daughter, uh, probably you're more habilitated, you have more ability to really be a help if there ever was a problem. And then you're probably more fun to be with too, because your daughter probably senses that a subtle dissatisfaction in saying, "Hey, hook up with that boy," finding a better one. I don't like that boy. And she says, "Leave me alone. I want to do my own thing. I like the boy or I don't like the boy. I don't know." But anyhow, uh, so then you could see that without that kind of, you would have a better relationship with her too, right? Because she wouldn't sense that inner yearning that you want to change her. And then everything would really improve, I think.
Luckily, I don't have to take this personally.
What did I hit a bullseye?
No, no, you didn't. I said, luckily, I don't have to take it personally because I'm quite willing to let people. But I know there are places where I would like things to be different. Like maybe I want her to be happy, so I'll be trying to tell her how to be happy or um, tell her um, there's a way that I do it that I know is intrusive to her sometimes when I do that. So that means I'm not really letting her be and wanting her to be a certain way because that'll make me feel better. So I hear in the story that you gave about her being married or living a certain way and all that wasn't true, but there's an aspect of it that's true at another level. I really want for most people that they be happy. Sometimes I see that how they think and how they're going about it may not be the road to happiness, But then that's my opinion. It may or may not be true for the other person.
Okay, let's see, how would you restore that? Instead of saying, I want you to be happy, you could say, I want you to learn from your unhappiness. And then it would be really yours, you would really own what you learn. And so then, how about that?
And I often say that. I say all these disappointments in life can be an opportunity to learn from it. But I think I come off preachy sometimes, and I think that's the part that gets on people's nerves. You know. There's quite a delay on this.
Yeah, I don't know, there's a delay. I think my, what is it? My CPU is really blocked. It's really tight. It might be my fault for my part of it. But anyhow, I think our conversation's going all right.
Yeah,
But, you can, maybe I preach too, or people take it that way.
yeah. Well,
But
no, I
anyhow, I
think
got so many opinions. I'm opinionated about everything, and then I put
but
myself in a preachy place, right? So they say, okay, I'll run a group. So then I get permission, right? And
yeah,
then with the rest of life,
no,
I
but
don't know.
I think you're open to things also. Like you're open to a lot of what other people have to say. But since it's about the book, I suppose that becomes harder to do because then we're veering off the topic sometimes. Um, no, I think you're a good listener. I don't think you're that preachy, but that's that's not how you come across. So there was another thing that came up about boundaries. I think it was somewhere in the chapter that I'd written a couple of things. Um, so the boundaries of other people, and you said something about it's part of relationship that there are irritations because you step on the other's boundary at some point or the other.
How did you like that? Did that seem freeing?
Uh, for me, I suppose I'm irritable, and then the other gets hurt, and when they're irritable, then the hurt comes back here. So it's like a yo-yo thing that goes on. And I suppose to put it in the fact that relationships are about irritability is freeing because then so there's irritability and then you move on from there. So that's very freeing.
When I thought of that, I thought, oh my God, that really frees everything up because usually we think, okay, I'm good at a relationship, we're really in love, or I'm bad at it. It's kind of like an
Yeah.
either or situation. And so then if I say, I'll just say, oh, let's just make a whole new context that actually the theory of relationship as mutual irritation, right? And then getting along and just managing that. And when we don't get along, it's not like we've fallen out of relationship. That's it. We're in relationship, and it just seems like natural. So then we don't deny our experience and say, oh, we're not doing it. Maybe I don't love this guy anymore, or what? There's no doubt to it. You just okay. You don't have to believe it. It was just kind of like an example of a broader context. And then I said, okay, in that new context, everything is just a boundary issue. but I never said I never explored boundaries that much. In fact, I was talking with Mikhail the other day, and we were really, really talking about boundaries and saying we need to write a chapter on boundaries or something. But basically, boundaries, I don't know what you could say about it. I think that if you uh, believe that somebody wants something out of you, then you have to kind of set up a control system to see if it gets to be too much. And that control
Yeah.
system is your boundaries, right? You set up a fence and say, well, just come to the fence and we'll be good neighbors. Good fences make good neighbors, right? In the New England, they say that, right?
Yeah.
And then so then we could discuss or figure that out, or we could write about boundaries and try to understand how much of a fence we need, right? And then we could also back off of people and say, well, I realize you've got a boundary and you're kind of holding me back because I want something from you. And I'm looking into my wants and needs. Like, do I need you to be a certain way or to give me a certain thing? And even your attention, right? Maybe you're busy. And no. And that's why sometimes when I used to do talks, I talked with a spiritual teacher, there was already expectations of they would give me, I would give them a platform to talk, and they would give me some jewels and gems, right? And then when I talk just to a regular person, like having just a dialogue between two seekers, there really we weren't having any expectations like who knows more or anything like that. We were just kicking ideas around and seeing how they, if they picked up, if you roll a snowball, maybe it gets bigger. we
Yeah.
we just have a few ideas, and so then I found there was less and less boundaries just between talking to someone that was more like a peer, or that
Yeah.
the roles were a peer, because like I as a interviewer I had a role to show off this guy or this girl, and we would do roles, right? Like I'm the interviewer and I ask questions, sometimes dumb ones, and then they come out brilliant, right? And so, what are boundaries? I don't know. What do you think? What are they?
Well, I suppose there's like physical boundaries, and then there's emotional boundaries, and so I read somewhere about the in the East the physical boundaries are kind of neglected a little because there's such crowding, especially in places like India and China and things like that. Space isn't that plenty because of the number of people, but the emotional boundaries are huge. Like they don't really open up as easily as in the West. Um, I mean, that's generalization, but the idea is that uh, culturally also those boundaries change. And so that's another part of the stack that we carry around from the past, I think. It's like that influences the ease by which we can communicate or understand or not understand because sometimes the boundaries get in the way. Um, uh, so, so even when someone needs your attention all the time, that's an invasion of a boundary, like you said already. And I guess neediness is a great invader of boundaries sometimes. I guess that would be one. Um, but then it's also because the person feels like they have to fulfill whatever is needed. suppose you could choose not to fill somebody else's need. I don't know if that's
Well,
going
choosing
on.
not to fill somebody else's need is a boundary, right? And then the fact that somebody else is projecting a need toward you, or you're projecting their need toward you, maybe they're not doing it.
Yeah,
That
that's the
creates a
thing.
boundary too, And then a boundary is just someplace, if you're conscious of boundaries, you've shifted your focus off of meeting the other person onto like how not to meet the other person.
That's true. That's true. And the way you don't meet the other person is by projecting your thoughts of what the other person really wants.
And maybe getting angry about it, having an emotional reaction about it too. Oh, they shouldn't do that. I'm not going for that. And then
Yeah,
you got this other thing. That's another part of focusing on the bound. Well, that is a boundary too, I suppose, is a reaction. And all those things get in the way of your attention. Your attention goes on to backing off and on to having a reaction, and so that thins out your attention from just receiving the other person. In a
that's right.
Yeah,
But see, like these people that the gurus and things like that, they get so bombarded by everyone wanting so much from them, then they need to be like cordoned off so that they don't get overwhelmed, right?
yeah. They develop a protocol around themselves, or their entourage develops it probably.
To protect them.
Yeah, yeah.
And so there is a limit to which anyone can, I suppose there is a real thing of invading a person's boundary also.
Well, let's think about it. It's just like if we just live in a family and just in a community and just meet people. Uh, when we meet people, there's probably no boundary issues, or there really is not. We might have a lot of boundary issues, but let's say they're not overwhelming in any place. But if we kind of project ourselves and write a book and give talks and then have 1,000 people listening to us, well, that's kind of something we did. We put ourselves out in a position that we trying to cast ourselves as some kind of like a knower or seer or sage or author or expert or something. And so then we put ourselves in a situation where we could have 1,000 emails, right? And we're not going to be able to. We're not really going to let our email address out. We're going to have to filter those all, and like I kind of enjoy contact, so I don't want to really put myself into a position where it's not my dream, right, to be an expert of anything. Although it might be tempting if it started to happen by itself. If I wrote a book and it published, and it might be tempting that oh yeah, they'll give you money if you if you project yourself into a space like that. And so then who knows? I could be tempted to it, but as of now, I enjoy personal contact. Like if someone calls me, I answer. If somebody writes me, I answer. Right, and I'm not overwhelmed by it because it's just you know I keep it down to reasonable numbers by being kind of caustic.
Are you caustic? I haven't
Not
seen,
really.
I, no.
I'm a big sweetie.
I remember that, I don't know, somewhere on the post, I got a little worried that you were being caustic. But that's part of the problem with uh, me, with writing sometimes, because you don't really see where the other's coming from. You just see the words.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think that's something that happens there. But it also opened up to me how that was a trigger for me there, you know. That's another word that you use is triggered. So that's one of those images that got sparked, and I could have gone back into the, and I did pretty quick, you know. I said what was coming up for me, but I also didn't get really pulled uh, down or dragged down by that whole thing,
Mm.
because it was like, it doesn't matter, whatever it is. And I had to come back to how I was trusting myself in that situation. So that was a learning experience for me right there.
Yeah, I mean, I've had some people that it was difficult to say anything to because even if I said something good, then they'd think, oh, if you say that I could be good or this is good, that means the way I am now. And, you know, if I would express a potential, they'd say, oh, that must mean you're judging me now that I'm not good enough yet. And you couldn't say anything positive or anything negative to that person. It would always be turned around. But I mean, we, you know, like we never say that there won't be any reactions. We just say, how long do you stay in them? And then
Yeah.
we claim that, you know, our methodology or our experiment will allow you to back out of reactions quicker. And then that's an ongoing cycle. So then finally they're just kind of a ripple.
You know, the one about pre-deciding things? It's like um, we have a tendency not to watch attentively when something has already been pre-decided.
Yeah.
That that was pretty interesting, because that's what causes reactions often, because our attention is not on that, uh, the belief that's making you react, of making me react, or the meaning is so overpowering that I take my attention off whether that's where the mm, that I take it too seriously instead of lightening up on the meaning. And I think that's very freeing also, is to just back off and lighten uh, the meaning that we give things. And the thing of spark of an image was um, about thoughts, or you're not calling them thoughts, just
Potential
any
thoughts.
potential thought.
Yeah, sort of. Let me just say one thing on what was it we were saying on pre-decided.
Yeah.
Uh, so then we just came. It's just a thought. It's just another story, right? We just say,
Yeah.
okay, let's say something is pre-decided, then we don't have to look there anymore. So we're not looking.
Uh-huh.
So then whatever we're not looking at, we're blindsided by it. And so then we say, that was so overwhelming. I really got whacked by that. But how can something, a thought or a belief structure be powerful? It has no power. And so then we're suggesting the only power uh, is that you're not looking. But if you were looking, of course, you'd say, well, I'm not doing that anymore.
Yeah.
So then pre-decided is a little bit dangerous, right? Because it kind of, okay, this is just a story that makes things comfortable and say, well, like maybe I should look at some of my pre-decided stuff and then open it up for a new question and refreshing. And then it won't have any power, right? All thoughts and emotions are overwhelming. Well, no, they're not. They're only overwhelming if you're not looking at them. You know, where did that emotion? Why am I building that emotion? And then because we tie feeling to story, and you look at the story behind it and say, I must be saying that. Oh, that's not true. So then, okay, that's. I'll just let you comment on that.
Um, so I suppose it's like you said, it's the meaning that is attached to, but it's not even, it's so instant. The reaction is so uh, instantaneous that there's no time to connect the meaning of whatever's coming up to the reaction. So, like you say, it's pre-decided that whenever that trigger comes, I'm going to react.
Yeah, that's the instantaneous part is the predecision.
And so, meeting it would be to go back into it, I suppose.
Yeah, right.
Meeting, meeting that trigger would be to really see it so that it's not subconscious or pre-decided anymore.
Yeah, I
It's
guess
exposed.
every reaction is pre-decided.
Yeah,
That's why it happens so fast, right?
yeah,
And then whether it's a spark of an image or not, we're saying that it even was a spark of an image, but somehow it was pre-decided on, so it just jumps. And then we're just saying, okay, choice is pause, choice is pause. So then, because why? It's so laughable, really. If you want to choose something, you got to have another, you got to have two, right? Should I have this or that? And then, so then you got to pause. And so pause means when an idea comes, you can't pick it up. You got to wait until the second one comes up. Really, a third, a fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, or whatever, you know. But until you get one that you like and you want to go on it. But so then that's the whole idea of a spark of an image. Now, a spark of an image is it's actually an action. It's not a noun. It's actually a verb. Because we're calling it a noun, like a spark of an image is an image that you're not thinking about, but you just realize there's a potential. You could really build a story on that because you've got a history about it, or you have beliefs about the evidence around, and so on and so on. And you could start to pad all that out. But to say a spark of an image is a verb, it means like, okay, I just set that image back down.
yeah.
Just go to.
Um, so, do you think that you don't instinctively like certain things and dislike certain things?
Well, I don't know. I mean, instinctively, what do you mean? Sometimes okay, we don't like certain smells of rotten stuff, you know, and that could be an instinct to save you from eating it because maybe it would make you sick.
Yeah. And instinctively or intuitively, you know that certain certain things turn you off, or yeah, like that's that's a whole different place, I suppose. But that may be what makes us choose as well, right?
Yeah, but I don't think that's a good word instinctively, you know, because that kind of
No?
means it's in the genes or in the bones or somewhere, you know. But just make it part of the stack that you were burned so many times in that kind of a situation that you don't want to go back to it. You know, it might even be from school. You were embarrassed. They said get up to the board and write this lesson down, and you say, oh no way, you freeze up, you
Yeah,
know, and then everyone laughs, right? And then you could say instinctively, I don't like to say things in front of a crowd, right? And then if that's not instinctively, that's just
so that's from the start, I agree.
yeah, yeah.
um, but taste, like say from childhood, some people don't like a certain flavor or a certain food or whatever it is. there's there is like and dislike that each of us have at a very fundamental level. Or are you saying all this is part of the stack?
Gee, I don't know. You know, like, okay, when we make a story, we try to make a most flexible story up. So if you say things are in my genes instinctively and all that, and I never liked bitter tastes. Okay,
Yeah.
I like sweet tastes.
Uh,
And then I moved to Italy, and then they have all these greens and vegetables that are kind of bitter, and then I started to get the taste for
Enjoy
them,
that.
right? And so then, but I mean, just to make a story that says it's in the stack is more, even if it isn't. Just make that story up and then see, and at least that'll get you to look at it and see. If you say instinctively, you just avoid for a long, long time until I don't know what. So
Yeah.
then, an opening, more flexible story doesn't really try to build anything in. It just tries to say that I have a choice on it, on this too. So that's pretty clear, isn't it?
Yeah. What about people? Are there people that sometimes you'd rather not be with? And so then,
Well, if they are, you know, like I give them a hard time maybe, and then they'd rather not be with me. You know, I'd
uh,
like say, well, like this guy needs a good challenge, you know, and let me slap
yeah,
him on the side of the head. And so then I kind of challenge his ideas and stuff like that. And he says, well, you're always picking on me, you know. I don't need that in my life. Get lost, you know. But anyhow, you know, like it's kind of boring if okay, like somebody that every thought comes out their mouth and they're
yeah,
constantly babbling, babbling, babbling. I don't know. Someone else that will never open up, right?
yeah.
Huh. They won't even give a huh. And
Uh-huh.
what's the use of them, right? They have to do their own thing, right? And I don't want them to be happy, right? I just want them to learn from their unhappiness, like we said about our own children or something.
Yeah, yeah,
So then I
yeah,
don't know. I like to give everyone a shot, unless they're uh, challenging me too much.
yeah. So it again comes back to ourselves again. Responsibility is not so much on the other, it's the way I deal with someone, or sometimes I feel like I just don't have the time for certain people.
Yeah, they're too slow. So then just that's okay. Say, look, some people want to cry on your shoulder, and they're just looking for someone to wipe their tears, right? And to agree, yeah, yeah, you do have a tough life. And then those people, and then you really try to meet them and try to give them a more flexible story and stuff. But that doesn't affect them at all. They still want to cry and get support that their life is especially tough and they're a special case, and that. And they tell you all about how the long path of how they got there, right? And then we say, well, that long path, not here, certainly not in my memory.
Yeah.
And so then, yeah, you get tired of them.
So it's just then how do you re-story something like that to be kinder, gentler about it?
You just ask them, like, well, what's happening today? I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't
bring
know,
them in.
just say focus. Okay, there's a focus, And you don't really change anything, but you just move your focus. Focus is where you're looking. Okay, then you always can have two choices, right? I'll look what doesn't work or I'll look what works. Excuse me.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just going one at a time.
Yeah.
I look at, so which will it be? Will I be focusing on what works or what doesn't work? Okay, let's say that I'm what doesn't work is kind of overwhelming, or I've always had a hard time with it, and so like I like to express it. But in a way, that is that continuing it. You just tell people like that, right? Or is it? I mean, I'm not saying ignore anything, but spend some time with what works, because maybe that'll build from there. Maybe what works will build by spending time with it.
Yeah.
And maybe also what doesn't work will build by spending time with it. And consider these things. And at least it'll seem like most of your life is made up with it, because you've always focused on it for, 65% of the time. And so then it's not really such a leap in the imagination to think that maybe you could use the power of focus in the way you want it, not in the way that has been habitual. You can speak to
And
people like that, right?
so I suppose it's like becoming creative at that point. You'd call that creativity. Come up with another way of being around someone like that, which could be entertaining to both.
Yeah, I don't know. We say creativity so often that it gets to be some kind of like magic word that really doesn't have any
Yeah.
path to it. Like, what's the path to be creative? And in one sense, I think it's pause is choice, and its ability to make a choice, right? And so then you say, okay, we should be another way
Yeah.
around that person that would be fun for everybody, right? So then how are we going to have another way? Well, we have to pause, right? And
Yeah.
not run with the first way that we've always run with. And then, so then creativity is kind of like uh, setting that first way down,
Yeah.
right? Until maybe another way doesn't come today. You think, like, let me check my watch, I gotta go. But maybe another way will come someday or something, or hey, let's just do something and have fun. Hey, let's go to the zoo.
Yeah.
We'll see how the monkeys act. We're monkeying things around a lot, so let's see. Maybe we'll learn from them.
Going to see a movie is a great out because you don't have much. That's like something that everyone can enjoy, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I don't know. How are we doing right now in our talk? Because like we're talking a lot about stuff, but we're not really. I'm not saying that we've got to go and find out what hurts us and then expose it and then see if it's true or false. But I'm just saying, okay, like I think there's a huge understanding, from you and from me about life, right? And then some
Yes.
things recycle, and then we're saying, well, how should I not recycle that? And then you just got to kind of pause, right? Somewhere in the middle
Yeah.
of it. It's called setting it down. And then that makes a truth out of something we call spark of an image. Until you set something down, it's not a spark of an image. It's actually a full-blown thought in progress, right?
Yeah.
And all the things you're doing to make that a bigger thought, like mostly is comparing with other times it happened and looking for evidence now to make sure that, yeah, that's it again. And somehow saying, well, I already did that so many times, so that's enough. So
Yeah.
now I wonder what else is new, and then just, well, where to go? Just kind of go to like a neutral space, like a space of no yearning. We haven't talked about that. That was a kind of a neat thing that happened when I talked to Anne right away in the first place. We said, well, what is yearning and what is no yearning? And actually, I was just saying yearning is kind of comparing this moment to other set of principles that say that it could be different now. Because if we didn't really have those principles, we wouldn't. Of course, we're always going to know that it could be different and other people are different and stuff like that. But I mean, just not make a big deal out of that. And not enough to change your focus into a yearning. And then a space of no yearning, it's just a space with, you know, not too many thoughts, right? Because you're saying, okay,
Yeah.
all those other thoughts, all those other standards, all those other possibilities. Well, so what?
Yeah. that's good spot, that no yearning.
Yeah. And then to realize the mechanism of yearning. Like anyone, a lot of people are giving you something, well, it's all outside in, isn't it? Because if you didn't have the outside in, how could you yearn?
If you didn't have the outside in, how could you yearn?
Yeah.
I always thought of yearning as inside out.
No, it's a judgment on the inside. You know, like if you, the outside in, it gives you a place to go. And then yearning can happen because you could say, oh, why this again? I could go there. But if you didn't have that place to go, then this would be it, right? I'm
Oh, I
not.
mean,
I'm not suggesting there's a pure world like that where there's no thought. But I mean, in a way, that's really the mechanism, isn't it?
yeah, yeah.
If I give you a truth, you say, "Oh, maybe I could get there." Oh, the first thing is it's not happening now. The second thing is, oh, maybe I could get there, and then that's a yearning, right?
For that truth.
Yeah, but really, let's say there's no truth, or a truth is just what you. The real truth is like what you see right now in your life, right now in this instant. That's your truth. So then there's no polarity there, no place to go, no tension to say, oh, I should move forward.
Or
And
should.
maybe the truth of right now is that you are moving forward, that you just release a whole bunch of stuff, that something came in the door, a letter came that invited you somewhere really cool, or that you just met someone and you really hit it off good with them. That just happened to me. I met someone a couple of days ago, and wow, the first time we talked 10 hours, and the second time 7 hours.
Wow.
And usually you can't take anyone more than half an hour, right?
That's no. I know exactly how that happens. There are people that you can go on talking to, and then there are other people that you get stuck after a while. So
Yeah. And we weren't really, we were just receiving each other in wonder, we weren't really agreeing or nothing.
no,
And then we were just being true with no boundaries, right? Because we didn't really
yeah,
feel like, I didn't feel invaded by him, and I guess he must have not felt invaded by me, or he would have shut it off. And then he was saying that he was not feeling all that good either. He's got some mega headaches, and he's got this, that, and the other. But when we're together, I guess he's feeling fine.
yeah. That's great.
So this no yearning, is where you go while you're waiting for another spark of an image. That's what happens when you're saying, okay, right now seems boring, but and I should kind of think about the future, or I could, let's say. And then you're thinking, no, no, that I'm going to experiment not doing that so often, called worry. So then just go to no yearning for a while, and then something will come in. It's like something comes in right away, right?
Yeah,
And that's
yeah,
creativity from no yearning, and
yeah.
uh, and that's see, because like outside in is always full of content, but inside out, or starting from the in, doesn't always have content. Maybe there's none. It's just a white space or a clear space or like a no yearning space or just a satisfaction space or just feeling like, ooh, I'm warm and my heart's beating so nicely and
But that is the no yearning place, right?
yeah,
And the yearning is also from inside, but it's because of wanting something outside, right?
correct. It's built by a judgment point,
Yeah,
which is external. Anyhow, that's a story that I made, and it kind of helps seeing it and gives more power to me. It's always empowering. Any story we make if it's broader and gives more, and allows me to do more things with more success or effectiveness, let's say, then it's empowering, and then that's called being more friendly to yourself, and then it's more relaxing, and then anxiety goes away because you think, well, I don't really want to do that now, but I know I could, so then I'm not anxious about it, you know, and so I don't, so I don't even have to do it now, but. I was even saying that when you really understand anxiety, you can even get anxious. Just fool with it and play around and go into the past and do all kinds of things because you don't get scared that, oh, I'm lost again and my life is in the pits, and you know that you can back out any time, right? And then I said sooner or later that'll get boring. Why would you even want to go back there?
That's true. That's true.
Yeah. I guess that I'm just really not tempted whatsoever to build a story that says I'm missing something. I mean, it's so easy to look at other people's lives and say, well, I'm not like that and I'm not like this. But somehow, isn't that always a disappointment? And chasing that other thing. And I don't know, so much just comes into life just even uninvited, just as a gift. So you don't really have to chase everything. And then what comes in are your gifts, not someone else's gifts. And so then, isn't that cool? And it's easy enough for me to compare with other people and say, well, I could have more money, I could have, I couldn't even say I wanted to travel more, or I don't know, until I do, then I think, oh, this is cool, I'm traveling. I don't know what. Like, I really don't have, and then the feeling isn't there either. Because, like, when I go over the list of all the sectors of life, I never have one of those sectors that feels blue.
That feel blue.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like loaded or charge on it, or I don't really feel a feeling. And I so much know that the story about it would create the feeling, and so then I never get tempted to make a story that says, "Oh, you're lacking here, or you're not meeting this, or I don't know." I don't really have to clean them all up and say, "Well, some are good and some are not," but none of them really have a feeling for me. So then I don't know. I think that's a definition that says life is good on all fronts, right? And then that's the idea that openness is a doorway, that verbal doorway talk. because it's not really the words that are the doorway, but it's the feeling that's the doorway, and the words create the feeling. So in a way, a verbal doorway just keeps open feelings or open, less contraction. And then through that limited amount of contraction can flow opportunities, and then I can recognize those opportunities, and then I can even say yes to some of them. And I don't have to say yes to all of them or anything. I mean, there's no directive about it whatsoever. And I let enough in so that I just enjoy it, and then I could say, "Whoa, let me enjoy that one some more. I don't want any new ones to get in the way of that one."
Yeah. Yeah.
And it really is not a circumstance, It's not anything that I have or do or am. It's more a knowledge that if I start creating off-color stories, then naturally I have to go down a whole garden path. And maybe that garden path doesn't go to the garden, it goes to the trash can. I don't want to go down that path.
Yeah, I know. I've noticed about being critical of others. That really tenses me up. The more I can accept people as they are, the more comfortable I am, and the more relaxed I am. So that's something that I've noticed, and I think a lot to do with what you've been writing. Just noticing that the feelings that come up with the different thoughts, and that's interesting. But I enjoyed the silence.
Yeah, me too. Just a day or two ago, I had another idea, like, how we all get used to trying hard and kind of like using pressure to help us work more effectively. And then we get so habituated to that we just feel like pressure is good, and that anxiety must be good too, because then if we're under the thumb of some anxious moment, that we'll work harder on clearing it out. And of course our theory is the opposite of that. And then I just got the idea that, kind of like the outside in idea. When you start life out, you're always motivated from the outside. First, your parents say clean your room, then your teachers say do this assignment, then you're in the university, you got to do your thesis, and then you get a job and you got to do what the boss says. And somehow it seems like on all outside in motivation to accomplish, pressure is helpful. Deadlines and so on. And then I said, well, on the other side is like your passion, your hobby, your creativity, your art. You can get lost in that. Your music, your dance. You can get lost in that for hours and hours, and even have more and more energy for it, and not really feel like that you have to have a pressure to accomplish it. So then I said, everything that's your internal passion, actually, the pressure is counterproductive.
Yeah.
And then I thought, well, is there a way you could transfer everything you do to be a passion? Well, not to reject it. In other words, meet life where you need to meet it, and then not have a take on, oh my God, I hope this is over quick.
Yeah.
And so then you can realize that things happen really well. I mean, so many people have a definition that if I'm not under pressure, I'll just sit on the couch and watch TV. I need to be under pressure. And then, of course, that gives them a justification for all kinds of anxiety-producing behavior.
Yeah.
And so then they live a kind of a unsatisfying life that they're always anxious. And that's how you get kind of sucked into that.
Yes. I think it depends on what you're doing. I suppose you can be anxious in whatever you're doing,
Right.
but or calm doing whatever you're doing. I think um, I think helping people sometimes, or being in the healing profession or whatever it is, can be quite anxiety producing because, like, there's a format and there's some way of having to work within parameters, and then if you're not meeting that, then there's anxiety that you've done something wrong. So sometimes I feel like those rules sometimes get in the way of being truly effective.
Well, I don't think you have to have anxiety. Even if there's rules, you can play with them. You know, a rule is just kind of like an average, but then there really is a fluctuation or a plus and a minus on every rule. And then there has to be kind of a window of flexibility to really face that person because nobody is an average. Uh, Even to say a speed limit is an average. And when no one's on the street and it's 3 lanes wide, you could go faster, right? Because no one's near you. There's no way to crash into anything.
To go faster.
And then when it's all packed up, you should really go slower than the speed limit because you only got about a foot between you and the next car.
Yeah.
So then they're an average, right? Or like how to help people or what the protocols are around your job and all that stuff. Somehow there should be a little bit of flexibility, but whether there is or not, I don't know. So
Yeah. It's, yeah. Gets that gets tricky sometimes, but that's something that I think that's where vacations come in handy, is when after a while you just back away from the whole thing and there's just that feeling of not being responsible for anything or anybody. And then you come back and there's this charge of energy for a while. And then you feel like now it's time for another vacation. So that can be quite a balancing act. It must be nice being in Thailand right now.
yeah, just outside my door is difference, and I don't always go out even. Sometimes I stay in. Maybe I'm writing a lot or something. So I'm totally flexible on it. How much of it I can take in at once and so on. Uh, I don't know, like I'm not a special person really. I'm just kind of like a very typical person. And I just realized that you can tell whatever story you want to about your life or about the different sectors of your life. And then some of them really produce ease and then just keep everything open and stuff flows through it, right? And only what you define as you in your stack can flow through it, but up to a certain point, it can be new and different. And somehow that's more fun and more rewarding and to live with the definition that this is satisfying
Yeah.
instead of saying live with a definition that I should be yearning for something better, a higher state or something. And then kind of like make up a story that all stories are made up. Make up a story that lots of goodness will flow into your life when when you come from a satisfied place. Tomorrow you'll be more satisfied. Why not? If you're dissatisfied, it's kind of like a stretch of the imagination to say the more dissatisfied I am, the stronger I'll flip over to satisfaction someday. No, you'll never do it. So then, without being any kind of a special case or having special qualities or special possessions or special flexibilities, I just feel to share that it's so easy. And to look at all parts of my life and all people in a renewed way and get along better and appreciate people more, respect people more, allow more diversity in my life, have more tolerance. And then, I don't know, it's an imagination, I suppose, to extend this and project this and say, well, that could heal the world. Maybe not my little part of it would be kind of inconsequential, but that kind of a movement could. And then let's share it. And if two of us are doing it, at least we'll have our own little corner of the world that is fun. And then healing. And then non-damaging. And then so many things we could say. So then I just feel like if I write something down, maybe it won't be that difficult. But I suppose what I'm writing is kind of like complex. But really, in my life, it's so simple. It's just like one straight movement. There's no steps to it or nothing. It's just a different dance that says, I don't know, I can't imagine that I would ever have an idea that I should complain or grumble or, I know it's so false. That if I engage in it, I mean, I do it for a little while, but really I don't believe in it. I don't believe what I'm doing is effective. I know it's so ineffective and so self-reproducing, and I don't think I complain about anything. I could. I guess I did on the Shiva process. I complained that not enough people are doing what I want them to do.
Yeah.
But anyhow, I wasn't really thinking they would do it.
You didn't think they were going to do it?
No. I mean, I didn't. And they have to do what they're going to do. What I'm just saying is like it's so simple to live in a little different way. And why are we used to living in our own way? I don't know. I think it's all pre-decided, right? And we're not looking fresh. So then I'll look at everything pre-decided with a question and saying, "Whoa, I wonder how far out of date is this one?"
Yeah.
First, you got to unearth it, uncover it. But boy, life gives you plenty of opportunities to do that. So that's not really a biggie. Yeah. And then, I don't know, I want to make it so simple that you'd never turn back. I feel like I'm at a point where I never turn back. How could I? I can't imagine how I could really, no matter what happened.
Yeah. There's something that's expanded there.
Yeah, I call it expanded then. And then really setting aside all the other kind of yearnings and letting someone tell me, oh, you could be awakened. And then I know about it because I've had a few of these experiences. And then you really feel like you're everything. And I don't have one whit of temptation for any of those. For any outside in, I don't really have any temptation. I don't know, suppose I should read more about other kind of therapies and what's the latest and what people are doing here and there. I never do. I don't know anything. And I don't really want to. And when I do force myself to read something, usually I pick it all apart. And find out all the outside-in principles in there and how it's all full of laced with these poisons of yearnings and possibilities and employing your life to get somewhere and how that all rejects what's here now. And so I'm not very good at looking at other people's work and appreciating it. I only like mine.
But you did a lot of work already like that. Like, I mean, all the people that you interviewed and all the, I mean, you were with Osho, you said,
Yeah, I was
right?
with
You were
Osho.
with Osho.
You know, that broke
So,
your mind and all that stuff, but that's all assumption too. We don't know anything, you know. You could say like, oh, all that stuff's accumulative. Because usually people said, oh, you've done work in your past life, you know, you've sat and meditated and all that stuff, and it's all cumulative. Or you could just say like, you know, they say when the student's ready, the teacher appears. So the teacher is really extraneous. The student is ready, right? I don't know what. Uh, it just, how do you know? You never can test with your own life because you can't really know what would happen without, if you didn't do that. It would happen anyhow. Or I don't know.
I think, I don't know, I think that's an assumption because I think Krishnamurti also did that a lot. Like he just said, "Oh, you can do it immediately. You can just switch, and you're there, and you don't need anything." But he also went through rigorous meditation, and then he went through that whole thing. You know, he went through a lot before he came to that point. But I think people that have gone through it a lot then suddenly realize it's so simple. But for the people who haven't done their groundwork, it isn't that simple. I don't think, I don't know,
Okay,
I
look,
don't know.
I'll be glad to say that you could do it in an instant. You know that it doesn't take any process. But I'm not playing a spiritual end game. I'm not saying awakening takes no process, or even that there is an awakening, or I'm not denying an awakening because other people will say, yeah, I certainly shifted time and time again, and it's huge. And so then I don't really have to get involved with that. I mean, it's not part of my life. So then, what am I saying? I'm just saying, like, you can set down a mental track that you're on in an instant, and then it becomes a spark of an image, and you're in a pause and a no yearning space, and then another spark of an image is there, and another one, and then you say, well, I've been around here for a while, half an hour now. Let's see what I think I'll do one of these. Anyhow, I'm gonna go out and wash the car.
Yeah,
So then you can do it in an instant, but do what? I'm not talking about any end game. I'm not making anything up that you're going to be transformed or enlightened or anything. But the things you can do
no,
in an
but
instant are just, you know, don't have anxiety. You can do that in an instant.
I don't think he was talking about an end game either. I think he just meant being open hearted and seeing life um, completely, like not in fragments, like not in little bits and pieces, but just all of it. I think
Well,
that's
just
what
to
he
say
was
all of
trying
it
to
is an
say.
end game, right? Who knows what all of it is and why you should see all of it, you know? Why should you see all of it? It's confusing. Just see one thing at a time.
Well, it's like, I was just reading that story about the Sufis who, there were three Sufis and they were touching the elephant, and one touched the trunk and the other the tail, and then the other, and each came off thinking that they knew what this was. But it's because they were only seeing a bit of it, and there was another one was seeing a bit of it, another was seeing a bit of it. They couldn't see all of it. And I think when you say,
Hey, I would say you
yeah,
never can see all of it. You never can see all of life. And then if you want to see more of it, step back, right?
that's the that's the that's the process, the stepping back.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of breaking it down a little bit so that by stepping back, you get to see a broader view than you could see before. So that's the expansion, I guess, that comes from. Just being silent and stepping back instead of reacting immediately. A lot more comes in there, right?
Yeah. Let's say we talked about a lot of things, about, and then I don't know, we maybe made a lot of distinctions, and I don't know. Will that change both of us? Are we gonna feel more at ease this afternoon or tomorrow? And then I don't
But
know.
just,
We could say what happened, right?
you mean just by talking about it, will
Well,
it
I
make a
mean, that's what
difference?
we did is we just talked about it
Yeah,
in a way. Well, that's good.
yeah,
We said things, and then I try to say things are simple, and they'll get more simple, and then that's probably about all I tried to say, right? And then I
yeah,
said that you could make up stories that were more flexible, and that they're no more true than the ones that aren't, but somehow they give you more room to feel okay.
yeah.
And then with a lot of concrete examples about not so concrete, but I mean like focused examples on certain areas. And then I don't know. I don't know if I had any super brainstorms or new ways of looking at it, but
No, no.
very pleasing conversation. But let's see that if this is transformative. Why not? Let it be.
It is. Thank you.
Yeah,
It was fun. It was really nice.
yeah, really nice.
Enjoyed it.
You're looking at so many great areas in life that I mean, for sure that everything is changing, right? You're just looking at them, and then when you settle on an description of this is what it is, maybe that puts it back into stasis for a while,
Hmm.
right? So then you don't really necessarily have to have a description about what that is, or if it's something close to somebody else's work. I know in a way, you're kind of an integralist. You like to see the good in everything, and you integrate everything together, right? But each one of those descriptions, in a way, just stop the process in yourself. Is that true, or I mean, am I just making that up?
I think it broadens it for me. It it's like a word here, a word there, kind of mm, makes me see things clearer. I wouldn't even say sometimes it's a description. It could be just one line in a book that will say, "Oh, that says it all." Like it rings so true. So I think that's what happens with me. And there'll be times when I'm not reading anything, and then suddenly it's like this book will come, and I'll devour it, and I get so much out of it. But I don't reread it. I hardly go back to anything. I just get what I get and I move on. And then I don't know if it is there anymore, if it's accumulated, or whether it's it's not something that I study. Like your work, I have to study. I have to really read it to imbibe it. When I talk to you or when I hear you talk to people, for me it's much easier to um, understand what you're saying. But when I read the chapters, I read it and then I think I have it, and then when I read it again, I see I haven't I haven't got it at all, and then I read it again. But it's only because of the feedback that I'm doing that. Otherwise, I'd get the gist of it and I kind of know it. I don't know whether that's because I'm trying to see something in there that's familiar to me, or whether that's because I feel like, and it's all familiar, it all rings true, and yet it's different.
Well, like we have descriptions
Mm.
in our lives, and in a way, we rest on them. And then where we don't have a description, we have a live process. And I'm saying that sometimes the descriptions take us out of the live process because we just rest on the descriptions and we're not in the live process is like the inquiry and discovery. And then I want to kind of impress that the live process maybe should be 50-50 anyhow, or just allow some live process to keep going, which is inquiry and discovery, and then questioning, basically standing back and questioning. And you can't question if you have a belief or you read something really good and say, oh, that's it. And then if that helps you with your live process, great. But if it kind of extinguishes your live process or kind of lessens it, maybe what can we do to reignite your live process? And I don't know if it's too much work. Maybe you could. We're not giving a directive that it has to be this amount. Just a little bit.
No. I'm not saying it's too much work, and I'm enjoying it. But it's something that I need to. I think because the wording is different and the ideas are different, it takes me a while to assimilate it, kind of.
Like, okay, the wording is different on purpose, because like when I say spark of image, so far we've said no thought is where creativity is in our other spiritual teachings. But spark of an image is an image. It's a thought. It's a label. And I'm just making a further distinction that says there's nothing wrong with a label, but just don't jump on it and start building a big story out of it and agreeing with that label. And then, be in a space of no yearning about that spark of an image. If you jump on it and start working with it, it's not a spark of an image anymore. It never was, maybe. If you start moving on the first thought that comes to your mind or the first action step, you never have any choice, of course, because you're always moving on whatever came in. So, I mean, each one of these words is like a new possibility to say, oh, well, it's okay to have a thought. I don't have to be in no mind. This no mind thing is like impossible anyhow. It never happens, or happens so rarely. So then mostly the no mind description brings you a lot of dissatisfaction that you're not doing it. You're not doing it properly. And questioning, like, why can't I do it when they got this no mind word? It must be someone's doing it, and I'm not as good as them. And so then I try to make some new wording that there's actually a new possibility. Okay, if I say that our relationship is basically mutual irritation, and then we have an irritation with somebody, well, that's only natural. We know that we can back off or be easy or look into it. But it doesn't mean that I've got a dissatisfaction because I'm not doing it right. Relationship is when we're loving. And then irritation is when we're caustic and we're not loving and we're competitive and we're we're self-centered and all these other definitions fall away, right? Okay, let's say that I'm not forgiving enough. So then I make another kind of a definition, which is a whole nother possibility. And I say that forgiving is only blame. If you're not blaming anyone, there's no such thing as forgiving. And the only thing that blame is kind of like being a victim of somebody, saying they did it to me. So then I don't have responsibility for my own life. So the whole gizmo of blame and forgiving and more forgiving and, you know, it's all about me denying my own responsibility and being victim of my circumstances and of my childhood and of, you know, whatever. I mean, maybe you and I had wonderful childhoods, but maybe, you know, the whole world is kind of struggling with, you know, past trauma. So then that is all, you know, even if you don't know, well, how the heck could I be responsible for this? So what? Doesn't necessarily mean you have to offload your responsibility, right? You maybe didn't do the action, but you received it in a certain way, wherever you can do it, right? Okay, so every one of these things is kind of like a new context
Yeah.
that gives you more possibility to move, and it doesn't make you wrong right now. It does not make you wrong. It includes what you're doing now. So then
Yeah.
there's no reason to feel like the inadequacy thing kind of melts, right?
Yeah.
And even like, okay, the outside in, okay, I've worked with a lot of stress, and I just made up a new realm of possibility that says everything that's all actions that are motivated from the outside needs, it actually helps to have stress and deadlines and you know, orders and stuff like that. But all things from the inside, you know, if you've adopted something as your passion, like your work is your passion, like talking to people is your passion, then the more you do it, the more energized you are. You don't need any push or stress. So those are two things, right? The one is outside, stress might help. The other is inside, where you don't need stress. A third one in between is going to be like where you realize, hey, even on the outside stuff, I don't need stress, right? I could even just
Yeah.
diffuse it and then
Yeah.
see what happens, you know, and not make a belief out of it, but just say it's an experiment. And I could
Yeah.
just say, if I don't have stress when I'm doing what people tell me to do, force me to do, pay my taxes, make my car payment, things that I don't really like,
Yeah.
stand in a line, or try to fix a virus in my computer, it's senseless, you know. And the fact that you say, oh, it's senseless already, you don't want to do it, right? And then you can realize, but you're not going to fix that virus any better by being stressed about it. You're going to fix it worse, actually.
That's true.
So then when you realize all those things, I mean, all these special jargons and different concepts and changing the words, I have to change them because my belief is, it's, well, belief. That's just the principle of the experiment is that your words make your feelings. So then to have broader words is what it's all about. You know, broaden your words about everything that makes a stress on you. And so then just naturally we're not only broadening words, but we're broadening the context where those words are born.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
So
Maybe,
that's expanding.
yeah.
That really expands things a lot. So that's what I found is once I really, this chapter 9 was especially something that I had to read over a couple of times. The other chapters were easy. This one was a little, I don't know whether I was distracted while I was reading it, so I had to keep rereading that.
We'll write about it in the comments, what you get and what you don't get, and then we'll just continue on that. I mean, that'll help everybody.
Yeah, I really got most of it now. I mean, it's very clear, especially after speaking to you and everything. It becomes more and more visible, like it's tangible.
Well, then if it's tangible, then write and share about how it's really making a change of how you look at things. And then
yeah.
you instead of just being general about that, go on a specific, like this thing happened, and boy, oh boy, I did it a whole different way, and it was really so easy, and I hope so on and
Well,
so on.
well, it's like what I did with when I had the reaction with you. I wrote about it on the, you know how
Yeah, yeah.
that whole thing. I usually write it when I when something comes up. I write it, but I think I write it in all the different spots. When it comes up, I write it, but I don't necessarily go to how has it changed me right now. How are these things changing me in the present, like, you know. But I did go to that eventually and write in there. But almost all of my notes are about how it's affecting me. Um, and I try and give little instances and stories about when I noticed it affected me. No, I think it's very, it's, it's a fun experiment. It is.
That's the best thing you could ever say about it. It's a fun
Yeah.
experiment. Well, let's draw to a close, and then we'll see where we go from here. And then we got some other good chapters, and then I don't know. I don't want to postpone it. It's happening right now. 8 and 9 are really where it's at, and 10
Yeah.
is kind of like a summary of those. And
Okay.
actually, it's a more powerful thing, 10. So then, but let's just really get 8 and 9. That uh, yeah, and then we've kind of broken it apart,
Yeah.
and sometimes that sounds like extra work. But anyhow, that's the way we're used to learning. So then let's just see if that's not the good way to really internalize it.
No, no, I don't see it as extra work. I just find it, um, it's a challenge. It's good to have a challenge because it's new. So I don't see it as extra work. It's just shifting, shifting the way of something that's already there. It's like seeing it in a new, and that's good. That's what's fun about it.
All right.
Okay.
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 When we really get into it, we can talk. We both learned. We both like talking. But anyhow, thanks so much. Because you give me an opportunity.
Thank you.
All right. Bye for now, then.